welcome to our podcast where we look for opportunities in our lives to see a beautiful view. I'm Candy.
And I'm Paul. We want to invite you to join our Patreon. We love visiting with you through the podcast. It takes a lot of time and effort to put each episode together with the writing, the recording, and the production. So it really means a lot to us when someone signs up to support our efforts. Membership's only $5 a month, and that money goes to help cover the costs. We would love to have enough patrons and sponsorships to launch a website, and that is our next goal.
Yes. And when you team up with us, we will send you a Beautiful View podcast sticker. You'll get a shout out on the show, and every week you will receive an encouraging weekly newsletter in your inbox. The link to sign up is in our show notes.
We look forward to sharing with you today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the beautiful view.
We could climb a mighty mountain, float on down a winding river, travel back in time and face our future too. Oh, I'm not scared of where I'm going, 'cause I know whose hands I'm holding. Oh, I'd go anywhere as long as you're going to. Well, I'd go anywhere as long as I'm with you.
So what's new this week?
Well, it's been a busy week.
It
Again.
has been. It seems like all of our weeks are busy these days.
They are all rolling one into the next. And I feel like time is disappearing as we head towards camping season.
Yes.
So to start off all of that, Tyler and I went on a scout camp out here locally.
You did. You got a little taste of camping season.
Yes, and enjoyed it thoroughly. We had 6 scouts and 4 or 5 adults that rotated in and out. And we just stayed here in town, which was a good thing because I was in charge of making sure that we had enough water and supplies.
Yes.
And I turned up with about half of the water that we needed. So,
because I'm assuming none of the utilities are on at the campground yet.
Nothing is on at the campground yet. We had the place to ourselves though, which was nice.
Yeah, that is nice.
So, I had to come back to the house and fill up the water tanks again.
Oops.
Yeah. So now I know. So
now you know.
Yeah, but that's been
time.
good. That's been good. So
yeah, and Tyler also started golf.
Yep.
Don't really know much about golf. You've played a few times.
I have walked around lots of golf courses and lost a whole ton of golf balls.
There's that.
In various different ways. Yeah.
Yeah, but we have other family members that have played. Our niece has played, and she's really good at it. And so we'll see. He's having a lot of fun with it. Let's see, what else have we had going? Our kitchen looks a little bit like a science lab right now. I have a little bit of an experiment going on, and I've got a sourdough starter started, which has kind of taken a little bit of
a few attempts.
So I baked my first loaf yesterday, and it was not great.
It was fine.
It wasn't what I envisioned. We'll just put it that way. So today is going to be round 2, so we'll see how that turns out. But
I'm sure it'll be great.
I'll just keep messing with it until I figure it out. So that's just how I do things.
So it's been smelling of baking in the house.
It does smell really
good. And you can't complain about that.
That's true.
So that's really nice.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get going today. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about spring cleaning.
Yes, we are.
The weather has been a little nicer, and it's got me into that kind of spring cleaning mode.
Yeah,
it's nice
the sun
and
is
sunshiny
shining
today.
Yeah.
But I'm not just talking about cleaning house, though that's definitely a part of it. We're also going to be talking about spring cleaning our lives.
Okay.
Clearing mental, emotional, and physical clutter.
It's healthy and a good idea to take some time every once in a while to evaluate the things that occupy our physical, mental, and emotional space.
Yes, there are things in each of those categories that can really weigh us down instead of providing peace and joy in our lives.
So let's dive in and talk about some ways we can spring clean our lives.
Sounds good. I think this is a really interesting subject to discuss.
Yes.
A couple of times a year, I typically get this feeling I need to do a deep clean of everything. I'm not just talking about cleaning the house either, though that is definitely a part of it. I feel like we start our year with all the good intentions. We're going to take up all the new, healthier habits, and we're going to stay organized, and we're just going to make it the best year ever.
I think everyone does that to some extent. Then by March or April, we start feeling overwhelmed again.
Yeah, I think that's true. It is so healthy to pause every so often to reevaluate how things are going, to ask yourself, what's working, what's not working. Mm-hmm. Let's start with the most obvious, physical clutter.
Yeah.
For me, clutter and disorganization in my house just completely stresses me out. Things out on kitchen cabinets, the couch is in disarray, things piled on the kitchen table, dog toys spread everywhere. You get it. Mm-hmm. Having a neat and tidy home brings me peace and calm. Mm-hmm. I know it's not quite as big of a deal to you, but how does having a neat and tidy space to live in versus clutter and mess everywhere affect you?
Well, my main thing is being able to find stuff.
Yeah.
I seem to spend most of my life searching for something.
You do.
And I usually like to involve you in that.
You do.
And that seems to be passed down to my lovely son, who was just searching for his wallet this morning.
Which we've yet to find.
But I'm sure it will turn up at some point.
Hopefully.
I know that setting up for the podcast every 2 weeks is kind of a thing, because we kind of take over the living room. I mean, we've got all kinds of stuff around here.
Yeah.
Why don't you take a picture of
so
what
we can
we're
show
looking
that.
at, so you can. Okay, here we go.
All right, smile. Yeah. It's really something. And the problem is we usually do the setup like the night before. But this week, you had the scout camp out. So it was like it had to happen like before that so that it was ready to go when you got back. So we've had like cameras and microphones and lighting and all of this stuff set up in the living room and in my space for days now. So I've been okay with it. But it does kind of like...
But it does get us to where, if we're setting up and tearing down, it means that all of this stuff has to get put back where it should be.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And it gives us an opportunity to kind of tidy up the living room after we're done. And then every single week on Sunday, we have a Bible study where we have people come along to the house. And so we have to make sure the living room's clean for that. So we do have a schedule that means that we're paying attention to keeping organized, as because if we don't, we're going to go crazy.
I started a new routine back in February where every morning when I get up, I come into the living room kitchen. Coffee first. First, coffee. That's the first thing. Yeah. So, but then before I start my work day, I take time to unload, reload the dishwasher. I make sure the couch and blankets and pillows are all where they're supposed to be. All the dog toys are put back in the little basket. Well, until Gracie comes downstairs and pulls them all out again.
One at a time, yeah.
Yeah, and she doesn't just take one out. She'll take one out at a time, but then everything has to come out. So just like a kid.
Yeah.
I make sure that the oil diffusers are going so that we have nice, smells going on.
Yep.
I make sure our bed is made and just everything is ready for the day. And when I do that, for the rest of the day, I can better focus on what I'm supposed to be doing because I'm not fretting over the mess around me and aggravated by the pillows on the floor or whatever. Because for some reason in our house, when someone sits on the couch, they have to throw my pillows on the floor.
I can't stand pillows on the couch.
I know. And
I like the look of it, but practically when I sit down and I'm sort of sitting sideways, I got this pillow in the way and I'm I just dump it.
Yeah.
I throw it.
Yeah.
Throw pillows. I throw them.
You throw them. Yes, you do. You take that very practically, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Anyway, so.
Very literally, yeah.
Yeah. It takes me about 15 to 20 minutes every morning. And when I do that, I'm so much more productive during the day. Once everything is kind of put away and I'm ready to go for the day.
That's good.
I'm curious about what your thoughts are on this little routine, man of no routine. I know that you aren't nearly as worried about this stuff as I am, but can you imagine what our house would look like if I didn't take the time to do this on a regular basis?
I really don't have to imagine, because I remember when we closed out the season at the state park in the fall of last year.
Oh,
and we left the house to the kids.
Children. Yes.
And we came back, and to be fair, like Emily was in the kitchen and she was washing dishes and trying to get it all figured out, but it looked like a tornado had been through here. It was...
and it wasn't like it was filthy. It just was a little bit like disorganized and in disarray. That's the best way I can.
It wasn't just pillows that had been thrown.
No, there were blankets and just
stuff.
Things just like the couch cover wasn't quite on
empty
right.
Cups everywhere.
Cups, plates. Yeah. It just
evidence of dogs and teenagers.
Yeah. So anyway, So that's what it would be like. If
I do appreciate the organization. I appreciate your efforts very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Also, at the beginning of each month, I like to take time to evaluate what went well the previous month. I like to kind of set new goals for the new month. And I like to make sure our monthly calendar is up to date, make any budget adjustments, start thinking about meal plans, decorate for the month, or if it's a new season. And I just like to feel like I'm starting fresh with a new month. That just really does my brain good. Yeah. So, and I know that you are not nearly that rigid with things, but do you have anything that you do on a monthly basis? If not, is there anything that in an ideal world you would like to start doing if the stars are all aligned? And
well, that was subtle. I don't know. Is there anything I should start doing?
No, I'm just wondering. It's just a question.
Well, I know you take things on a monthly basis. I tend to take things on a week-to-week basis. And you got me in the habit of cleaning up my office on Sunday, something about Sunday Fun Day or Sunday.
A Sunday well spent brings a week of content.
Oh, yeah.
That's a little saying.
Okay.
Well, to go by.
Okay. So I have, like, more often than not, gotten in my office and cleaned and put things where they're supposed to be. So because my Monday is always very full. I get up, I have a set routine of things that have to be done for my clients on a Monday. And so if all of that is clean and organized and I sit down at a clean desk, that just helps my Monday go so much better.
See? We've also started cleaning out closets and going through our spaces in the house. And I guess we've been in the house long enough now that we have started collecting some clutter again.
Somehow.
I don't know what it is about that. It's like if you have the space, we feel like we have to fill it. I don't know why we do that.
It's like a vacuum where everything gets sucked into the available space.
And when I'm cleaning out, I'm finding things that we had in the RV that we didn't really ever use in the RV, yet they made it into the house and we still don't use them. So why do we do that? But
I don't know.
Anyway, so thankfully our little town has a citywide garage sale that I think we actually have enough stuff to participate in this year. So we will definitely be doing that. So cleaning out your closet and drawers of things you don't wear is so liberating. I don't know why we're so afraid of getting rid of clothes. I guess the whole... I might gain some weight. I might lose some weight. I don't want to have to start over. I don't know why that's so hard.
Yeah.
You're actually pretty good at keeping your clothes kind of cleaned out, but I bet you could talk about cleaning out and organizing the garage and the RV.
Well, you talk about clothes. I go back just the other day, I went back to look for some old pictures to go with the podcast, which is another reason why you might want to see us on YouTube, because I generally put up some photos from time to time.
They're kind of fun.
Yeah, but I'm looking at pictures of myself and or of us and from like 8-9 years ago, and I'm like, I still have that shirt and wear it regularly. Bless my heart.
There's that.
Yeah. Yeah, but as far as the garage goes, if it's a nice space, but it's not like huge.
Right.
And if I don't keep that organized, then it makes it really hard when it comes to doing a project.
Right.
So I like to keep everything in the right toolbox, and then I can go get it, know where it's at, and I can get the job done.
Because when you do a job, every tool comes out.
It does. Yeah, I probably have, I don't know, somewhere in the region of about 10 to 12 toolboxes. And I open about every single one of them for no matter what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I can put a picture up on the wall and all 12 toolboxes come out.
And there are going to be things pulled out of every one of them.
Out of every one, yeah. So you obviously have a process for cleaning out clutter through the house and the RV. And then when I do clean out the shop, I get you to help me with that too.
You do, yeah.
So can you explain your process for those who wouldn't know where to start with a project like that?
Yeah, I'm a very linear thinker. So
yes, you are.
I think in rows and patterns and
columns
and very, So what I normally do is I typically pick a room and I start with the area that bugs me the most. Okay. So for example, in our bathroom in the house, we have this set of like shelves behind our door, right?
Oh yeah, the cave.
The little nook, the little cave under the stairs or whatever.
It's more than a nook. It goes very deep.
Yeah, it is very deep. But the problem with that is it gets just piled with random stuff. It's kind of a catch-all.
Right.
So, and it's meant to like hold our towels and cleaning supplies and all of those kinds of things, but it really can get out of hand in a hurry. So what I do is I start at the very top shelf and I start cleaning and organizing and straightening and then cleaning out as I go. And then I work my way down. And then from there, I just work my way around the room. The bathtub gets done next and clean, and then the toilet and then the vanity and so on and so forth. So the thing is, starting with a smaller room, like a bathroom, can actually make you feel like a huge sense of accomplishment.
Yes.
But it takes a shorter amount of time.
Right.
So I can clean the bathroom from top to bottom all the way around in probably an hour, but then once it's done, it's like, yes, it's just a huge sense of accomplishment. I love it. We obviously clean very differently. We have very different styles in how we go about things. How would you say that you kind of tackle a room?
Well, not too different because, not too different in one respect. So I'm trying to cover my tracks now. So I used to have work for a cleaning contracting company in the UK, and Robert Coggin was my boss, and he would train myself and other employees on how to clean a space. And he always said top to bottom.
Okay.
Because as you clean from the top down, stuff falls down, dust settles as it goes down. And so I do the top to bottom thing.
Okay.
So, yeah. Okay. That's the same, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then just kind of organize as I go. So, for instance, with my office, I'll move things around, and then I'm like, why is that there? Or, oh, I've been looking for that for the last 6 weeks. There it is. But yeah, I mean, if I'm going to clean a space, top to bottom, and then organize things as I go.
Okay. Yeah. So along with spring cleaning, though, usually comes repairs.
Yes.
So I think so far everything is good with the house this spring.
Yep.
I know last spring we ended up repairing the porch. We started getting into that and just realized there was a whole corner that was kind of rotted out.
It started off with one small 1-inch square hole in the corner of one of the sills on the side of the porch.
Yep.
And then there was metal covering up that sill. I took the metal off, realized the sill was rotten. started taking the sill out, realized the frame was rotten, and then eventually took the whole side of the porch off and rebuilt the whole thing.
There's that. Yeah. So, thankfully, I think this year, so far this spring, I don't think there's anything major with the house that we have to worry about. But we definitely have some repairs on the RV before we kind of get rolling in that this year.
Yeah, it's we actually said to each other, like, this is a conscious decision. The house is fine.
Yeah.
Let's just leave it alone this year. We have to focus on that RV. Our RVs are not supposed to last this long.
No. And ours is coming up pretty close to 10 years. I think we got it. It was brand new in 2015. So next year will be 10 years old.
So we have some things to do on that. We've actually already removed some rotten wood that makes up the floor of the main slide. So we have a nice, neat, square hole there now, which has to be, we have to put some new ply in there and recoat everything, weatherproof it. So we're going to do that.
Yep.
We have slide seals to redo. We have the roofs of the slides need to be painted.
Some plumbing to redo in the outside kitchen.
There's quite a few things to do. So we have plenty to be getting on with the RV.
A clean and clutter-free home creates more brain space for me. So I am my most creative and productive when my physical space around me is clean.
Yes.
But I have some other things I like to do to clear mental space. I make it a habit to do a brain dump on a regular basis. And, some days it looks different than others. Some days it's a little Post-it note next to me. Some days it's, the Notes app on my phone. I use that a lot to make lists and stuff like that. And some days it's a full-on, I get my journal out and do a full-on journal entry just to kind of, get rid of all this stuff.
Right.
And there really isn't a right or a wrong way to do a brain dump. Just whatever works. And I don't get really OCD about it being the same way every day or every week or anything like that. That doesn't really matter to me. The idea, though, is to get all the things that are like swimming around in my brain and, taking up space out of my brain and onto something else. So once I've done that, I can create a game plan for tackling all of that. And usually like 9 times out of 10, there's a whole bunch of like little things that can be knocked out really quickly, but it feels like big things when they're all swimming around in your brain. So it's just stressful to try to keep all those things and remember them. So how about you? How do you deal with brain clutter?
Well, I have my set of 5-color, 5-star spiral-bound notebooks.
Oh, you do? That's right.
Yes, I do. And I've always kept, this has been all the way through us traveling on the road. Even before that, I think I started doing that when we first started up the business full-time.
Oh, okay.
And so I have the green one, which is my projects book.
Right.
And I keep in that book, there's a double-page spread for the RV, one for the house, one for the car, and one for the truck. Like what needs to happen next. I also make, I'll draw little diagrams in there of things that I'm doing on the truck, like to remember where things go back, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's a way I keep that organized. Then I have what I call my weeklies, which I rotate the other 4 colors through, and so that basically just gets. I try and remember to put a date on the top of the page because 9 times out of 10 I'll go back and there's no date there, and I'm like, when did I
do that?
When did I write this? And so, but that's my way of doing my brain dump. Is like if I've got stuff, like I'll go through in my mind, and I'm constantly going through this sort of checklist of. You have to do this, then you have to do this, and then don't forget to do that, and don't forget to do that, and this, and this, and this. And then I'll go back to the beginning and run through it again.
Yeah.
And I'll keep doing that all day until I write it down.
Yeah.
As soon as I write it down, it's out of my head.
It's out of your head.
And I can move on. There is like a negative to that. Number one was, there's several negatives. Number one, my handwriting. It's a sign of genius, apparently.
Is that what that is?
Well, yeah. It's also dumb.
It's also not genius when you go back to it and you can't read what you wrote.
So I'll sometimes go back to most of the time I go back to the page. I'm like, what does that even say? But it did the trick.
It got it out of your head.
Got it out of my head.
It may never be found again.
Never be found again, and never done. But it's out of my head. That's the main thing. And then when I'm sitting at my desktop computer or on my laptop, I'll use the reminder app. Mm-hmm. And I have reminders set up, per client for our business, and then my own personal stuff. And I'll use that. And I generally have a deadline date beside each one.
Yeah.
And then on my phone, I use the Notes app. I don't generally use the Notes app on anything else, but my phone, I use it all the time. Okay. And so that's helpful to keep me organized on that side of things.
Yeah, good job. You're actually a little more organized than I thought you were.
I'm getting wiser as I'm getting older. By the time I'm 90, I'll have all this figured out.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe so. Yeah, and I mean, you've already mentioned this a little bit earlier where you were talking about your to-do list and putting your to-do list together and stuff. But oftentimes at the beginning of the week, you may have your to-do list written, but it's not in any kind of order of importance. And that's usually where we sit down together.
Yes.
And I can look at it and be like, okay, well, this is a little thing you can knock out quickly. You can knock that out quickly, knock that out quickly. That's priority. That needs to go.
Yeah,
and
helps.
So when we sit down and kind of go over that together, I think that really kind of helps prompt, by me asking questions and those kinds of things, helps you kind of get everything lined up for a productive week. Would you say that's true?
I say that is absolutely true because most of the things that we do, we're both involved in.
Right.
I mean, we run the business together. Yeah. We're doing those projects together. We're doing the Bible study together. We're doing the podcast together. So all of those things, we have to be on the same page. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So how about emails? I know I have 4 active email accounts that I manage, and some of them are more active than others, but every once in a while I go through and I just unsubscribe to all the things that I end up just deleting every time I come past them. I'm like, why do I get that? But instead of unsubscribing, I'll just delete them. So then you end up with so many things in your inbox every single day, and it just clutters up my inbox and it frustrates me. So I also unsubscribe from emails that, when you buy something, you have to put in your email address, then they forevermore send you things to try to sell you things. Well, when you're trying to clear out clutter, you don't necessarily want to be reminded all the time of the things you don't have, right?
Right.
So I try to unsubscribe from those kinds of things too, unless it's just something that I know I'm going to be needing and they send you coupons regularly. Sometimes I hang on to those. But anyway, so you did something a while back with your email account that kind of helped slow up some of those things. What was that? What did you do?
Well, I actually picked this up, I think on a YouTube channel. And so the unsubscribe thing is great and everything. Yeah. It takes a while to go through each email, click on the thing, tell them why you're unsubscribing, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I've found that when I've done that before, it might stop it for a week or two, and then I'm right back on their email list again. So what I actually do is I have a filter set up on my incoming email that looks for the word unsubscribe. So it goes through each email, it searches for the word unsubscribe, which I think almost all emails that come in have to have that if they're just like a promotional email. And then I divert those emails into my into a mailbox that I've actually titled unsubscribe.
Okay.
And then what that does is it means that I haven't deleted it, so I won't accidentally delete something I wasn't supposed to, but my inbox is freed up.
Right.
And then every now and again, and I probably do it at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, I'll go through that unsubscribe mailbox and go through there and make sure that
nothing got caught in there that wasn't supposed to.
And then I make an exception in the rule.
Are there many things that get caught in there that aren't supposed to?
Every time I go in there are between 900 and 1,200 emails.
Oh my gosh.
And it's taken a while because it did catch a lot of emails that I actually did need. Okay. And so I make an exception for that particular email address within the rule in the mail client. And then but now I go in there and I'm just skipping through them all, just like, okay, yeah, they're all junk. And then I just delete them all, at one time.
Yeah.
But it keeps my inbox free.
That's cool. So that you can see things that actually come from clients or
Right. It's a little work.
Things.
It's a little work up front, but it's worth it in the end.
Yeah. Okay. I may have to give that a shot on mine too. While we're talking about clearing digital clutter, every so often, it's a great practice to take time to detox your social media accounts by unfollowing every account that doesn't inspire you or bring you joy.
Yes.
Social media can be so
negative.
Weighty.
Yeah.
Is that a word? Weighty?
Yeah. Heavy.
Heavy, yes.
Yes.
If you're not sure how to do that, how to unfollow someone or something on Facebook anyway, if you look at a post, there's 3 little dots up in the top right-hand corner. And when you click on those 3 dots, a drop-down menu comes down and it gives you options. You can snooze someone for like 30 days if they're just going through, a rant phase or something like that. And you know that you're going to want to see their stuff again at some point, but right now you can't handle it. You can snooze them for 30 days. You can also unfollow someone.
Yes.
This does not mean that you unfriend them or that you don't love them. It just means that their stuff isn't going to show up in your Facebook feed.
And they don't know that you've done
that. And they
that.
don't know that. It doesn't tell them that you've unfollowed them. It just makes your feed a lot more pleasant. I started this several years ago when they kind of came out with that option. And now my Facebook feed is just full of things I want to see. And it's so wonderful. So
yeah, that really makes a big difference. And I tend to not look at Facebook that often now.
Yeah.
Especially this year. But I do, I like Instagram. There tends to be a different tone on Instagram that I like much better. And I definitely love YouTube. Like I have my channels that I follow. But even there, like on YouTube, I'm probably subscribed to like maybe about 130, 140 different channels.
Oh, wow.
And every so often I'm like, yeah, I haven't watched that one in a long time. And I just, I make sure to go in there and unfollow or unsubscribe from that channel. And that way, that keeps my sort of homepage clean and, keeps it organized. Yeah,
because I think when you go on with like YouTube, if you go on and you're subscribed to a whole bunch of things that you don't ever, content you don't ever watch, then when you go on there, you just scroll and scroll and scroll.
Whatever.
And just, yeah.
Might as well just unsubscribe and be done with it.
Just unsubscribe and then it doesn't clutter up your digital space. So I think that does make a big difference.
It does.
I also learned something new just this morning.
Huh.
When I turned my computer on this morning, I guess it had updated overnight or something, and it gave me the option to group my tabs. So there are certain tabs that I leave open, pretty much from day to day, just a handful of them, because they're things that I look at every single day. Our finance stuff, business related things I use every single day. So, but it gave me the option to put these tabs in groups. So instead of seeing, my bank account, my Google Docs, all of those things for finances, it's got it in a finances tab that I just can close them all in that tab. It's amazing. And so my desktop just looks so pretty, and you can choose different colors for each one. It's amazing. Anyway, and I know that we kind of do this differently because you have like millions of tabs open on your computer.
I hate to break it to you, but the whole grouping of tabs thing has been around for probably a year and a half or more.
I don't think that's true. My computer just told me about it this morning.
So
it's probably like, you crazy woman, you should be doing it this way.
So on my browser, on my Chrome browser, I have groups of tabs as well.
Yeah.
So,
but the problem is you have hundreds of groups of tabs.
So I have profiles on Chrome. So I have one profile for the business, one profile that's my personal, and then I have the profiles of each one of my clients. So that is a separate browser window for each one. And in those browser windows, I have groups of tabs according to, social media, website, finance, whatever. So it's all grouped together in different colors.
Yeah.
So for instance, on our business browser, I've now had to go to 2 windows because I can't fit all of the groups of tabs on my 21-inch screen. So
oh, my word.
I've had to go to 2 browser windows for the business.
Are you scared of closing tabs?
Yes. And so on one of those windows...
Why is that? Are you afraid you're going to forget passwords?
Let's not psychoanalyze this whole thing. But
it's interesting to me.
On one of those windows, I have 67 tabs.
Oh my God.
And then on the other one, I have 252 tabs open. And every now and again, my Chrome app will completely crash.
I wonder why. Oh my goodness. I guess I think all of that kind of comes down to like how our brains work. In general, men tend to be able to compartmentalize things.
I'm very efficient with my hundreds of tabs.
So messy might not affect your ability to be productive at your desk.
It's not messy. It's just, I like... It's
a lot.
I like
it's
all those
clutter.
Avenues into all the things that I have to work with.
Oh, I cannot do that. For me, and I think it's in general for a lot of women, everything affects everything.
Yeah.
So it's all just one big thing.
Right.
I think there are some positives to that, but there are also definitely some drawbacks. But one of the positives is I think it typically makes women better at multitasking.
It does.
Where men tend to focus intently on one specific thing at a time.
Yeah. So for me, when I do just think about one thing at a time. But that tendency for me is to get very OCD about that one thing.
Right.
And if it happens to be the wrong thing to focus on at that point in time, then I just lost a half an hour or more.
Right.
So for instance, every week we go through our Bible study material together. And then I go away to put together the outline.
Right.
So that we're ready for Sunday.
Right.
And the other day I just had this question on my mind because it seemed like the gospel account that we were looking at was in a different order than the other gospels. And I just went down a whole rabbit trail of researching all that stuff. And then 2.5 hours later, I finally emerged with what should have been a 20-minute putting the outline together.
Yeah.
But I got it all figured out.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. I'm glad you figured it out. But yeah, you do tend to hyperfixate on things, and that's sometimes that can be really good if you're trying to get a job done, and you're focused on
something
that job.
Complex
something
that
complex.
Needs my attention,
absolutely. That sometimes is a really good thing, but definitely that can go astray if you get sidetracked on something.
Yes, it can.
So a good example, I think, of all of this is, and this is kind of random, but one thing that we used to do in the RV was we had a to-go bag by the door. And what I mean by that was it was just a really practical thing of a lot of times we had to run for shelter. Like if there was severe storm or a tornado warning or that has happened multiple times. So it was just nice to have a bag right by the door that had water bottles, flashlights, maybe a light blanket or two, a little first aid kit with Band-Aids in case somebody tripped on the way over there. Because usually... Yes, and usually when things like that get added, it's because that happened. So that gets added to the bag. So, and of course snacks, because sometimes we were hiding in a bathroom or whatever at a campground for several hours. So that just happened. But it's so funny how something like that, as crazy and random as that is, can completely sidetrack my day. Like if I think of that, so here's what happened the other day. I was thinking of all the things that I need to have on my list to pack for our camping trip, right? Yeah. And that happened to cross my mind when I was doing something else, and I didn't stop right then and put it on my list. So all day in my brain, I was going back to that and back to that and back to that, and it kept sidetracking my thought process and what I was doing and keeping me from being productive. But as soon as I stopped and put it on my list of RV prep stuff, it was gone. It was fine. Now I know when I go back to that list to get ready to get our camping stuff together, it's going to be right there and we'll get it put together. Yeah. It's just crazy how that works. And just take up that brain space.
Yeah, I'm the same way. So if there's something that needs to be repaired on the RV, for instance, the floor.
Yes.
And there's a problem with that where that I can't get past. So on that particular job, the thickness of the board that goes in the floor is really unusual.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm like researching online, trying to find where the thickness of this board, where to get the board that's in this right thickness, and talking to people about it, and on and on and on.
Right.
And at some point, I think you just, because I kept coming back to it, at some point you just have to get in there and start working on it.
Right. Yeah.
Otherwise, because I was thinking to myself, if I get the material first, that'll help me to get it done.
Right.
Well, it wasn't, because
Right.
I couldn't find the material.
Right. Yeah.
So I was putting it off. Well, when I finally got into it, I realized the floor wasn't, the part that had to be patched wasn't quite as big as I first thought.
So if you would have got the board to start with, it wouldn't have been the right size.
So now I'm like, it's not such a big deal as I first thought it was.
Yeah.
I can probably sandwich two pieces together and it'll be fine. It'll just be fine. So, so for me, if there's a job like that I keep thinking about, I just need to get started on it.
Yeah.
Do something. Do what I can do.
Right. Yeah. Another area that can be completely overwhelming to me and take up a ton of brain space is our finances. And quite a few years back, we built a spreadsheet to keep all of that stuff together and organized. Yeah. And so we know exactly where we are at any given time. And I look at that, every day, that's one of the first things that I hit in the morning is looking at that, updating, and
doing it every day. It makes a big difference.
It makes a huge difference. That way I always know where we're at. I don't ever have to wonder, it really is good.
It really is interesting, the things that crowd our minds. I know at one point, turn back the clock like 15 years, I used to be able to keep, the place that I worked at had very complex technical systems, and I used to be able to keep all that in my head. I oversaw the IT at that place. I could remember passwords on not just my computer, but I think we had something like 50 computers on site. I had the passwords all organized. I could recall anything at any point. So if something went wrong in a live production at the last minute, I ran through it in my head. I knew exactly which cabinet to run to get the part. I knew which part of the racking system had that part.
That was always really impressive to me.
Constantly had that stuff circulating in my head, and I was able to do it because that was 15 years ago. I was a little bit younger, you know?
Yeah, but I also remember with that, you didn't sleep at night because all of those things would keep running through your head at night. You couldn't switch that off. In our conversations, a lot of times, that would be talking about that stuff instead of other things because you just couldn't switch it off.
It was unhealthy.
Yeah.
Another area where I have found a little more organization is helpful. So with the equipment that we have, the camera gear, the audio recording gear, the lighting that we have, if I'm going on a shoot, either locally or sometimes I even have to take a flight with all the stuff,
right?
I've made up checklists which are constantly in development. So I have these checklists for what goes in every bag, which compartment everything goes in, and then I can just go through every time we have to go on a shoot and just...
Is that like in your notes app or something? Or
I have an Excel spreadsheet with tabs that are one for every piece of luggage.
Okay.
So, the large suitcase, the carry-on, et cetera, et cetera.
So kind of like an inventory.
Yes, and as I say, I update it. So if I'm traveling... And this is where it gets really complicated because you have to isolate batteries for the TSA.
Oh,
they have to go in separate plastic bags. But
I'm sure you make note of that on your spreadsheet so you remember to do that.
And every trip really I take, when something is not quite right, I'll change that inventory checklist, and so then it's right for the next time.
Sure, right.
But that's one area where I have to stay organized because if I get on a job, especially if I've flown from Iowa to Texas,
right,
and I don't have one thing, the whole thing can fall apart. So
and that reminds me, I basically did that same thing with our campground notes.
Yes, you did.
I would record, where we stayed at the campground, what site we stayed in, how much we paid for it, whether it was a full hookup site or whatever. And we have like a running list of, and anytime we went back and stayed at a place again, then I would update the note. And so, we have lots of lists, I think.
Life is complicated,
It is. And I think just make lists for everything.
Yeah, just for everything. Yep.
So let's move on. Let's talk about meal planning.
Oh, I like food.
Yeah, me too. And I do this a little differently now than I used to in the RV. In the RV, we had very limited like grocery space. So I would have to meal plan each week, and then I would shop to my grocery list according to whatever we were going to have, which is hugely helpful with the clutter department, because when you do it that way, you don't end up with a bunch of extra groceries that you don't need, or, spending more money than you had intended to. But in our house, we do have a little bit more storage space.
Yes.
So I tend to do more like categories. Like we have Crockpot Sunday, Meatless Monday, Taco Tuesday, Warm It Up Wednesday, things like that. So what I can do though with that, I can pull groceries that we have together and usually throw something together.
Yeah.
And it's different every week. And I don't stick to that like completely, but it helps kind of my brain.
We also from time to time like to get through our stuff. Like we deliberately don't go shop.
Right. And we use up the things that have been sitting around for a while. Yeah. So just to kind of keep cabinet space getting cluttered and that kind of stuff. Cause I can't
just keeping
stand
stuff
that.
for the sake of keeping it.
Probably like in the RV, like when we go back for the summer back into the RV, I'll probably go back to like planning weekly, just so that's kind of, so we have plenty of space for everything. But is there anything that you like to plan out like that you don't have to think too much about it?
At this point, I usually just ask you what I can do to make you happy.
So what you're saying is that maybe I plan a little more than you do or think about these things a little more than you do, maybe?
Yeah. And then when I realize like that you're caught in like a cycle of planning the things that need to be planned for the things that need to be planned, then I'm like, okay, what can I do to help?
What can I do to help? Help. Yeah, and I know a busy schedule has kind of crept back into our lives. It really is okay to say no to things. We've had to set some boundaries to kind of conserve our time, because it gets so easy, or it's easy for us anyway, to get so involved in things. All good things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But sometimes you just find yourself going from one thing to another and having zero downtime.
Which is what it's been recently. And
yes. And it's
for good reasons. But
yeah, it is. But downtime is so essential.
It is for us. Yeah.
And this is especially true when you have kids that are involved in all kinds of different things. And, sometimes we just have to be very intentional and creative when we're scheduling our downtime for us.
Yes.
But when we do, it is so refreshing. It clears the mind, the body, the spirit. Just makes everything so much better.
Yeah, and we experienced this when we celebrated our anniversary.
Yes.
Last month.
Absolutely.
And we just took a day, and we had sort of like an outline plan of what we wanted to do that day. But the most important thing is we weren't going to be doing regular things. We were off the schedule.
Yep.
And we drove away from town, and we did something, it was simple.
Yeah.
But we just had the day to ourselves. So now, since we got back from our anniversary, we have deliberately scheduled a you and me day.
Yes.
Every month. And so it's now been almost a month since our anniversary celebration, and we are about to have a you and me day
this week.
Yes. Yep. So we are going to do something,
I don't know what yet.
No, we're just
something.
We'll find something to do where we can get out of the house, out of town, and just be just the two of us.
Yeah.
So I think that we're going to need that.
Yeah, we are. And it just kind of, it brings in those happy emotions. And that's kind of the thing that we're going to talk about next. So another thing that we need to spring clean is our emotions, because I think it's healthy from time to time to kind of evaluate and discard any emotional baggage that we're carrying around that might be holding us back from what we should be doing.
Yes.
So let's think about this for a minute. So what are some of those emotions that we enjoy having?
Well, I like to have a sense of gratitude.
Yes.
Never take anything for granted, but just be very grateful for what we have.
Absolutely.
We like to find joy in things.
Yep.
Most of my emotions are not hitting the top end of the scale. But so I like to be calm.
Yes.
We like to be calm.
Yes, I love calm. But also it's fun when we find something that's exciting too.
Yeah, and oftentimes
that doesn't
it doesn't have to be anything big.
No. I can get excited over the silliest things, really.
Just a new place or going to see some new sites or whatever. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So the question is, how do we rid ourselves of negative emotions that can cripple us and cause us not to do what we're supposed to do? Because we all have those negative emotions. I'm talking about things like self-doubt, fear, disappointment, anger, defensiveness, even loneliness, guilt. When we allow these kind of emotions space in our hearts, they really keep us from being our best self. It's important that we have a game plan to combat these kinds of things. And I have several things that I do on a regular basis just to kind of help me in this area and kind of keep those emotions in check. And so my top 3 things are, number 1, I like to journal. I like to journal for self-reflection, prayer, and sometimes just venting. So I've learned that those kinds of things, like sometimes they're better written down in private
that way, right?
rather than directed at someone.
You pointed at me then.
No, that was just out of my mouth. So the second thing is I like to spend time volunteering to bless others because that reminds me that I have purpose.
Right.
When I start feeling like, what in the world? What am I doing here? What is this? What am I doing? That just really helps me. And number 3, I too like to practice gratitude daily. So what are some things that you try to do to keep your emotions in check?
It's a constant battle for me. But I do like to stay busy and have a schedule for what we're doing each day because that takes my mind off of myself. So keeping up with Tyler and his schedule, for instance, while I'm thinking about like, where does he need to be? And like, does he have his wallet? Yeah. Does he have his golf clubs right now?
His water bottle, his lunch,
all those things. So but if I'm thinking about that, then I'm not thinking about me. And that's a good thing. I like to make sure that if I'm with other people that I'm asking them questions about themselves. How's your day? What do you like to do? Or just pick up on conversation. I like to try and turn the conversation around on the person I'm with. And that way I get out of my own head, which is super important for me.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when you do that, you kind of find some common ground, that you're like, oh, yeah, I'm not the only one feeling that. It's kind of like it's reassuring. So
it is.
I think all of these things are so important. We called this episode Spring Cleaning Our Lives. Yes. But really, these things are applicable any time of year.
Of course.
I typically like to reevaluate around the new year, in the springtime, and then before a new school year starts. That's usually...
That makes sense.
Because let's face it, we all fall off the wagon from time to time. I don't keep these habits like... I'm far from being superwoman or whatever. So I fall off the wagon too. So just having start times to kind of start over again and come up with a new game plan, that really helps me.
Yes. So what does the Bible say about all of this? The Bible has practical advice for everything we experience in our lives.
I can think of several examples in the Bible of cleanliness. The first one that comes to mind is kind of what we talked about in our stuff episode. In Matthew 6:19-21, Jesus spoke to a crowd of people. He definitely spoke about our stuff and not letting it be a top priority in our lives. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.
Yes. Jesus goes on to say that God takes care of all your needs. Those of us that think we have to save everything in case we need it should let things go and help others in need. Matthew 6, verses 24 through 30 says, "Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap, nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life? And why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not more clothe you, O you of little faith?"
Did you know that the Bible even talks about throwing things away? Ecclesiastes 3 speaks about there being a time for everything. Verse 6 says there is a time to keep and a time to cast away. There is a time to get rid of what we no longer use.
Yes. One more thing I want to share before we sign off. In Matthew 23, verses 25 through 26, Jesus was really frustrated with the religious leaders of that time. He was often frustrated with them. He said, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you clean the outside of the cup and the plate, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and the plate, that the outside also may be clean."
The same is true for us. If we are only trying to appear on the outside like we've done some deep cleaning, but our inside, our heart, and our mind is a disaster, we've missed the point.
Yes.
When our inside is clean and pure, the outside is as well. May we all aim to do some spring cleaning in our lives over the coming weeks. I think you will find a beautiful point of view when you take steps to clear the clutter and fill your mental, emotional, and physical spaces with things that bring you peace and joy. That peace and joy will then be contagious.
Yes, it will. Thank you for listening today. What are we going to talk about next time?
Oh, you're going to love this next episode.
Okay.
Tool time.
Yes.
We're going to talk about some of the projects we've completed on both our RV and our house. Projects we're currently working on, and some of the tools that some of us can't live without to get the job done.
Yeah, there are some jobs that you can get away with some cheap tools. There are some jobs that require quality tools. And then there are the jobs where we've had to invent our own homemade tools.
True.
There's a tool for every job, and with every job that we've undertaken, there's a fun story.
Yes, if you've been listening to us for a while, you know that our stories are rarely boring. If you know of someone who would enjoy this podcast, please point them in our direction. Visit us at Beautiful View Podcast on Facebook or Instagram. Share our posts or share the link to our podcast. Also, you can now watch a video recording, hello to our video watchers, of our most recent episodes on YouTube. And that link is also in our show notes.
Yes. Also, we would really appreciate it if you would follow, subscribe to, or leave a review for us, either on YouTube or your favorite podcasting platform. These things are completely free for you to do, but helps us push up the Beautiful View podcast a little further in the algorithms.
Yeah. Also, shout out to the Hopeful Few for the catchy little theme song on our podcast. You can check out more of their music on Spotify or Apple Music, and that link is also in our show notes.
If you have questions you would like us to answer or suggestions for things you would like us to talk about in our future episodes, email us at beautifulviewpod@gmail.com.
Yes, and as a reminder, please consider joining the Beautiful View Patreon. This helps us keep the episodes coming, and it helps cover our costs. Memberships are only $5 a month. Again, the link is in our show notes, and it's also on our social media accounts.
We hope you have a great day, and remember to always keep an eye open for opportunities in life to see a beautiful view.
We could climb a mighty mountain, float on down a winding river, travel back in time and face our future too. Oh, I'm not scared of where I'm going, 'cause I know whose hands I'm holding. Oh, I'd go anywhere as long as you're going too. And I'd go anywhere as long as I'm with you. Yeah, I'd go